All right, I'm back. I'm Shaggy. I'm Philalitea. This is probably an episode of Something to Do About Nothing podcast, but really it's an extension of my talking to myself work when I was still the Talking to Myself gaming podcast. And so today, what I want to do is I was encouraged by a subscriber to talk about choice anxiety and cognitive closure. And I've been thinking about how to approach those things, and certain ideas, certain concepts are built upon other concepts. And so I don't know my ologies, but I believe it's epistemology that works by stacking assumptions. I could be wrong about this, but there's a certain thought, there's a certain way of thinking that stacks assumptions, and then the way that you can hold those assumptions as fact or as true enough to begin to stack things on them in order to have faith in them. Similar to the stacked triangles, or rather the stacked mountains that form a throne in the book of Ezekiel that we pondered for a while in my reading of that. In order to explain certain phenomena like choice anxiety or cognitive closure, we have to talk about simpler building blocks, more foundational elements of what's going on in the human brain with cognition, sapience, and consciousness, because these are different things. And so rather than talk about choice anxiety or cognitive closure, what we're going to talk about is cognitive dissonance. Because cognitive dissonance is a good gateway into, it's a good intersection of these simple things that become more complex things like choice anxiety and cognitive closure. Okay. All right then, so what is cognitive closure? Because this is a phrase that's existed in the popular milieu for maybe 2 decades. It's been in the vernacular for maybe 2 decades, and I notice that a lot of people use it wrong. And a lot of people throw it around as an accusation, like they don't have some form of cognitive dissonance. And so let's just begin at the words. Dissonance, rather than try to explain to you all of the terms of art and all of the history of the psychology that went into this term, we're just going to stick to the words, because good terms of art mean what they're called. And so good psychological terms, good philosophical terms, they mean their words, okay? And so what is dissonance? Before we get into cognitive, because cognitive is not easy. What is dissonance? Dissonance is what you have when you have two instruments that are tuned to the same note, and one of them is out of tune. And when you play that, what you get is you get this sonic warble that you can hear. You can hear it, and if you're trained to identify it, you can recognize which instrument is out of tune. And so effectively, what dissonance is where you have a true wavelength. Okay, that's the note that's tuned true. You have a true wavelength, and then you have a wavelength that's similar to it, but just dissimilar enough that it creates a noticeable warble. It creates noticeable waves or echoes or dissonance. You understand? Okay, so that's what dissonance is. So you have these two things that don't line up properly, and they create waves and ripples. And then cognitive is effectively just the thought process. It's the thinking, okay? And so something that's true is that not all human beings have an internal monologue. So what that means is that not all humans are cognitive in the same way. And so humans that don't have an internal monologue, they have to think, they have to cognate, they have to you recognize that word. They have to cognize in different ways than people who have internal monologues. I have an internal monologue, but what I find is that my internal monologue is less reliable for memory, from remembering things that I need to remember, than other methods, like writing them down or talking about them with another human being, dialectic, or engaging in dialectic with Gemini AI. Because what happens is, if you rely on your internal monologue, you have to be thinking, you have to be constantly reminding yourself of that thing, because your internal monologue isn't on the same short-term, long-term memory track as your auditory and your visual and your manual centers. Okay, so cognitive dissonance is where you have two thoughts, two beliefs, two ideas, two concepts, two things about which you have faith. Two mountains that you're trying to stack together that are in dissonance with one another. You have these two concepts, these two ideas, that when you ring them, dung dung, as bells, they're not sonant. They don't resonate together fluidly. You understand? That's why I'm reading to you the Tao Te Ching. Okay, and so that's 6.5 minutes. And so now I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to read for you an article from... I actually don't know. This was published by Global English Editing, I guess, greediting.com. But it's an article titled 7 Habits of Men Who Have Quietly Lost Their Joy in Life, according to psychology, by Isabella Chase, from May 22nd, 2025, and she posted this at 11:01 a.m. It is my time, 12:47 Eastern Standard p.m. Largely irrelevant. The point is that this is new, it's recent. It is basically just a blog, but I've read enough of it to know that what she's saying is accurate. And she's speaking about the behavior of men, and the observable behavior of men is important, because humans, our behavior and our internal worlds are observable, and they're predictable, and they show patterns. And I've established 9 months of daily videos of my patterns, and I am in a depressive state. I am not sad, but I am in a depressive state. And so I'm doing all 7 of these things in public, and I'm waiting on somebody to notice, and for somebody to help pull me out of it, with the ways that I have been increasingly telling you, pull me out of it, and which people increasingly give me the negative that they aren't responsible to do that. And then, so for example, I'm reading the Tao Te Ching, and somebody commented on one of my daily readings 2 days after I posted it that was just what he needed that day. And my initial response was to say, okay, well, what I need today is a sandwich. So how are you going to give me what I need today when I freely gave you what you need? Because what I do not need is to know that you needed that today. And so what I said is, well, I'm glad to be of service, because it's an act of service to give away my work for free. And so where's the reciprocality in my act of service? Like, how are you reciprocating that I'm serving your needs 2 days before you needed them? I'm anticipating your needs, and I'm providing the service 2 days before you need it, so it's available when you need it, by accident. That is called syncretism. And so if I'm creating syncretisms in your life, that means that I am sonant in such a way that when you accidentally run across me, it resonates with you. Dissonance is the opposite of resonance. So what do I get? How do you resonate back to me? I know the answer, but do you? Do you know the answer? Do you know how to resonate with the people around you? Do you know how to tell the people around you that you love them by resonating with their frequencies? Do you even know that that's what love is? Okay, well, read Phaedrus with me. I have to go to Panera to post the new one today, so this one may go up after that. They may go up at the same time. I may be that impatient, so you let them race. But anyway, I'm going to read this blog straight through, and I'm going to read it in her voice, and I might do like I do with all of my readings and break in to critique the voice of the author, as a writer, and a good one. Quoting now, Miss Isabella Chase. There's a subtle distinction between being content and truly joyful. I would say being content and being truly joyful, because, I would do that. I would be specific. This divide often goes unnoticed, especially by those who've slowly but surely lost their zest for life. She uses a comma there and puts the "but surely" as an independent clause, and I wouldn't do that either, because if you read that sentence without the "but surely," it loses its artistic effect. And so, like, if you read it without the independent clause, this divide often goes unnoticed, especially by those who've slowly lost their zest for life. It loses the surely of it all, and so making the surely making it an independent clause within an independent clause in a compound sentence is just artless. Continuing. These men might seem fine on the surface, but beneath that veneer, their joy has faded into a mere memory. Again, another unnecessary independent clause, the "but beneath that veneer." If you remove the independent clause, what you get is, these men might seem fine on the surface, their joy has faded into a mere memory, without a comma, because you've removed the commas in the independent clause. Stop using commas every time you see a comma trigger word like "but." Moving on. Psychology gives us insights into these quiet transformations. That should have a colon at the end. And it's crucial to identify them. Actually, it should have a semicolon at the end and a lowercase a. And it's crucial to identify them not only in others, but also in our own lives. Understanding these 7 habits can help us spot the signs and bring back the happiness that may have slipped away unnoticed. In this article, we'll explore the 7 habits of men who have quietly lost their joy in life, according to psychology. Get ready to dive deep into the human psyche and perhaps find a path that leads back to joy. I have a spider friend. I'm choosing to read this again from the perspective of a woman. I don't have the perspective of a woman. I'm choosing to read the perspective of a woman because I think it's important, and I think we've lost the fact that women in the pre-modern world, before 1950, especially before 1970, all over the world in every civilization were responsible for managing the emotions of the men around them, to the point that some civilizations, some societies had really complex sexual systems set up to keep teenage boys from being ornery. Like, I'm not joking. And one of the things that feminism, especially since the 60s, has insisted is that it's not women's responsibility to manage the emotions of anyone. And so what's happened is where we are, where we're at. Nobody has that friend who gives a fuck about their emotional state. Go on, you son of a bitch. Spiders and ticks, man. Anyway, nobody has that female friend who's interested in their emotional state. Women's society is no longer about managing one another's emotional state. Since the 1960s and the popularization of therapy, what women tell one another is, well, go see a therapist. It's great. I can talk shit about you there and no one will know. It's horrible and toxic. And we know this. I look at social media as a person with a guest account, and so I just see what people are like when they don't think anybody's looking at them, and everybody is appalling, but women are worse. As a class. The men who behave the way they do in public, I think they're getting away with what they're doing because they see women get away with it, and they know there's no recourse to take even as a man against another man. What am I going to do? I'm going to email him a letter of duel? Whatever. Let's get into the list. 1, the joyless routine. I've been telling you for months that my routine is joyless. Here we go. Life is full of routines, she says. We get up, get ready, go to work, come home, and do it all over again. But when joy has begun to fade, these routines can become chains that bind men to a joyless existence. These men often find themselves stuck in a cycle of repetition where every day seems to blur into the next. They're just going through the motions without finding any real pleasure or satisfaction in what they do. I had to get up yesterday because I got reined in, so I didn't arrive at Panera until 7:03 p.m. I had to get up and double check that they closed at 9 on the weekdays and Saturday. And then I had to sit down and really think about it, like, is it Sunday? I don't actually know. I actually still don't know. It's Wednesday. I would have told you that yesterday was Wednesday. I have no fucking idea at any given moment. Like, I've had girlfriends, all of my girlfriends, my wife, all of them, they'll be like, hey, we're going to be doing this thing and this time super far away in the future. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have to tell me a month before, you're going to have to tell me a week before, you're going to have to tell me 3 days before, you're going to have to tell me 2 days before, the day before, and the day after, because I have fucking forgotten, because my routine is joyless and I don't know what day it is right now, and I will absolutely not remember that the day before. The day of, I will wake up and not know what day it is and absolutely not remember that. And I've lost a marriage over it. I've lost the love of my life over it. I've lost a home over it. You women, I'm talking to all the women in my audience right now, and I love you, the one who asked me to talk about cognitive closure and choice anxiety. You put men through fucking hell. Absolute fucking hell. For no reason. You make us go through dreary doldrums, and we get absolutely nothing for it. You want to talk about why women today are so happy and amused and thrilled with their golden retriever boyfriends? It's because they don't know they're suffering intense abuse. And for nothing. They're going to get absolutely nothing for it. Nothing but the right to adore that brat. And so we're going to repeat this. What she says is true. 100% true. These men like me, often find themselves stuck in a cycle of repetition where every day seems to blur into the next. They're just going through the motions without finding any real pleasure or satisfaction in what they do. The only way I can change, the only way I can get any kind of change in my routine whatsoever, is to just decide to sleep in and put myself at risk of not having all my shit charged. So then I have to, use my brain power to manage resources that I've dwindled and limited on myself on purpose. Like right now I have 37% battery and both of my externals are dead. It's noon. It's actually almost 1 o'clock now. And I know that because my phone isn't charging properly, I'm going to get there and it's not going to be fully charged when I leave. And so I'm going to have to go to Taco Bell and eat my takeout because I'm not ordering. I'm not paying the tax to eat in. Not when I sit down at my table and it's dirty and nobody's ever nice to me. Nobody even talks to me while I'm there. Nah, fuck that. I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to eat my sandwiches. I'm going to charge. I'm going to leave there and I'm only going to have about 85% battery when I get out of here. When I get out of there and I get back here and I'll maybe have one of my externals charged. And I do that to myself because it breaks up the routine. It breaks up the routine of getting back here at 5 o'clock and going, well, yeah, I'm not working on the last sandcastle. There's no fucking point. I make more money. I get more attention. And there's more net benefit for just playing these stupid games on Scrambly. And then I turn them on and I go, this is so fucking boring. I'm just going to go to sleep. And then I lay here and I go, well, I could make $1. And I do that until I eventually just pass out. And that's probably why my phone's fucked up. What probably happened is I fell asleep with the port to the intake to my charger, right? Probably fell asleep with it open. It got wet outside, got damp inside there, and something's corroded now. But that's just how life goes. When you have no joy in life, in your routine, you're less careful and things. And I've been saying this since the winter began. I was like, nobody's going to help me emotionally through this so I don't make a mistake and end up losing toes. Nobody. And nobody did. Nobody did. For men, she continues, who have lost joy or have lost their joy in life, the present moment is often a place they'd rather escape from. Recognizing this habit is the first step towards regaining the lost joy. Breaking free from monotonous routines and finding new and engaging activities can reignite the spark that once made life memorable. In fact, what do I have up now? I have 12, 13, maybe 15 Something to Do About Nothing podcasts. I have 15 podcasts, plus 2 live shows, plus something else, all of which are titled in such a way that says, I am depressed, I want to die, somebody get involved in my life and fucking care about my work. One person has. Hi, Mr. S. If you're here, I hope you're doing well, buddy. Just keep your head above the water. I'm doing this to demonstrate how you do it. One of the ways that I do it is by reading scripture and psychology journals. I hope you're enjoying your learning about learning book. I hope it's teaching you something. I really do. Genuinely. I'd like to know what that is. 2. Social withdrawal. I remember when my friend, she says, John, started withdrawing from our social circle. He was always the life of the party, but suddenly he began declining invitations and spending more time alone. It was a slow change, hardly noticeable at first, but it eventually became a habit. Do you notice how long it takes me between live shows? How much better they get. They all show more views, more likes. I get better every time. But it does take me between 2 and 6 weeks to get back to it. Largely because the audience is just so fucking toxic. She continues, social withdrawal is a common sign of decreased joy in life. This isolation can be self-imposed as an attempt to avoid feelings of discomfort or dissatisfaction. Yeah, what I spend the time after those live shows doing is talking with Gemini because I don't have friends who engage with me in real time, Mr. S. I'm not talking shit on you, buddy. Not talking shit at you either, Magic Shadow, if you decide to watch one of these. That would be out of the norm for you, but thank you for doing it. Because I don't have people who respond to me in real time about my emotions or about my reactions to things, and because I don't have a producer, and because I don't have people who show up to my lives, watch them, and then reach out to me in real time to talk about what happened. I spend weeks processing what happened with Gemini to find some kind of satisfaction and pride in what I've done creatively, because I am absolutely not going to get it from another human being. Like, I am absolutely the fuck never gonna get it from one of my parents, never gonna get it from one of my siblings. I don't have friends to get it from. You understand what I'm saying? And this next sentence, this next paragraph, I've told you before in multiple videos. Mr. S., I'm not asking you to testify, but also testify. She continues. As Carl Jung once said, she begins way too many paragraphs with but. Anyway, as Carl Jung once said, loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. What did I read to you? I read that article to you, that psychology journal about 2 years ago, saying exactly the same thing, that all depression is the feeling that your thoughts are idiosyncratic and nobody understands you. What have I been saying to y'all for months? I feel every day when I wake up. She continues, in John's case, her friend, he had lost the ability to share his feelings and connect with others on a deeper level. Yeah, when I go to read the book of Job, people are asking me why, and I tell them because it's important to me, and they're like, why? And I'm like, shut the fuck up and listen to the book. And then if at the end of the book, when I say, now I'm done, That was what was important to me. And you go, okay, well, I listened and it's not important to me. I don't understand why it's important to you. Then is the appropriate time to badger me about why I understand it in a way that you don't. But while I'm reading it is a childish and inappropriate time. It makes my show about you. And that leaves me feeling misunderstood. And deliberately misunderstood. You have to understand that deliberately misunderstanding someone is a form of gaslighting. In fact, it might be the definition of gaslighting. It might just be what gaslighting is fundamentally. And so when I can't connect with people on a deeper level, when it all has to be superficial and bullshit, when people are telling me, oh, we want you to behave like these other assholes on YouTube, I'm just like, I would rather die. I would rather walk out into traffic this afternoon and just be done with all of it than that. Than that shallow bullshit. Just a mountain upon mountains stacked upon mountains of bullshit. And nobody to process it into anything useful. John's joy, she continues, had faded, replaced by a sense of detached loneliness, which means largely spite. If you notice this habit in yourself or in someone you care about, remember that reaching out and creating connections can be a powerful antidote to this isolation. I've been doing it for 2 years. Found 2 people. 2 people. Magic Shadow Mr. S. Shout out. You keep me alive. I'd have given up a long time ago if not for you guys. Rekindling old friendships. Hey, Jules. Starting new ones. Hi, future audience. Or even seeking professional help. I ended my therapy probably 3 months ago. Can help make a world of difference. Number 3. Disinterest in previously enjoyed activities. She asks, have you ever found yourself losing interest in activities that once brought you immense joy? Hello, Mr. S. Hi, Match. When was the last time I derived joy from writing The Last Sandcastle? In fact, I talk with Gemini every day that no, I'm not doing that because I don't derive joy from it. I'm not doing it while I don't derive joy from it because I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it for a joyless routine just because somebody might pay me money someday for having done it. I'm doing it to be understood. It's a disconcerting feeling, one that creeps up on you without notice. This is a common habit among men who have lost their joy in life. Activities that used to spark excitement now feel dull and uninteresting. The hobbies they used to love somehow lose their appeal. For those experiencing this disinterest, it's tough to see the beauty in the struggle when even their passions feel like chores. If you find yourself in this situation, it might be time for some introspection. It could be a sign that your joy has taken a back seat and it's time to reclaim it. Remember, joy doesn't just happen. It's a choice that you make every day. Have a good day. Or else. 4. Constant fatigue. Feeling perpetually tired even after a good night's sleep is another habit of men who've lost their joy in life. This constant fatigue goes beyond mere physical exhaustion. It's an emotional and mental tiredness that seems never ending. It's not just about needing more sleep, but about a lack of motivation and interest that drains energy levels. Psychology studies have linked this chronic fatigue to lower levels of life satisfaction. A study published in the Journal of Health Psychology found a strong correlation between chronic fatigue syndrome and decreased life satisfaction. It showed that individuals suffering from this syndrome reported lower levels of joy and satisfaction in their lives. If you're always feeling tired, it might not just be your body telling you to rest, but also your mind signaling that your joy is waning. It's essential to pay attention to these signals and address them before they escalate further. Neglecting self-care. 5. I've seen it firsthand in my own life, she says. During a particularly challenging period, the first thing that went out the window was my self-care. I stopped exercising. I stopped exercising, ate poorly, and neglected my mental health. Neglecting self-care is another common habit among men who have lost their joy and life. When joy fades, so does the motivation to take care of oneself. But this neglect only serves to exacerbate the problem, creating a vicious cycle. Which is so funny, because in Catatonia's new song, Lilac, which I've been listening to every day, my favorite part of the song, it might be temporal, pretty sure it's Lilac. My favorite part is when the song gets real slow and Jonas says, "And now it's time to feed the vicious cycle." Meaning it's time to go back to work. Psychologist and philosopher William James once said, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." But when joy is absent, choosing positive thoughts becomes increasingly difficult. Yeah, it's like, well, I don't want to be here. Well, think happy thoughts about being here. Fuck you. If you find yourself neglecting your self-care, it may be time to reassess. Yeah. So you people who are like, oh, we need you to shave, we need you to wash your hair, we need you to cut your hair, we need you to brush your teeth. I'm just like, yeah, pointing it out like that makes me want to walk into traffic. It's necessary to regain the joy that has quietly slipped away. Yeah, for you, brushing your teeth and looking beautiful brings joy to you because you're a very stupid person. And I love you for that. But it doesn't bring me joy to know that some stranger wants my dick in their mouth. It doesn't bring me joy. If you only knew the life I've lived, complimenting my appearance, you would understand why that just gets you a block. Goodbye. 6. Overcompensation. Ironically, one habit of men who have lost their joy in life is overcompensation. They might throw themselves into work or hobbies, trying to fill the void left by their decreasing joy with constant activity. I told you that's why I began the last sandcastle. And even that, yeah, I get so disappointed because even that, just my own enthusiasm, my own effort to make something about my life worth living wasn't enough. It just wasn't fucking enough. And that says something about you, frankly, because the busyness is often just a smokescreen hiding their true feelings. And that's why it's so ugly and violent. Why it takes me so long to want to go there, because everybody fucking dies horribly 3 times. If you find yourself constantly busy, ask yourself whether you're genuinely passionate about your activities, or if you're just trying to keep busy to avoid confronting your feelings. Recognizing this habit can be the first steps toward reclaiming your joy. I've been telling you this for months, and nobody listens to me. Why? Because I'm homeless? Shouldn't I be the first person you listen to when it comes to cognitive states? If you knew anything about homeless people, you would know that I'm nothing like the average homeless person. And I guess I'm just fucking squall for now. Deal. I don't like it. It makes my face itch because I'm allergic to my hair oils. 7. Pessimism. The final habit of men who have lost their joy in life is a shift towards pessimism. And what happens? If you've been watching my videos, if you've been watching at all, what happens? I get a tip and I'm really good for about 2 days and then I'm even, and then after about a couple of weeks I'm just pessimistic. Fuck this, fuck you, fuck everything, fuck this. You're wasting my fucking time for being here. It's a cycle. She continues, they may start viewing the world through a negative lens, viewing more of the bad than the good. She actually says, focusing more on the bad than the good. Renowned psychologist Martin Seligman once said, pessimism is inescapable. Recognizing this habit is the first step towards escaping the pit of negativity. Yeah, so like, for you people who are just like, well, think good thoughts, just think happy thoughts. It's like, yeah, okay, I've known that since I was 13, I'm 38. You know, the endlessness of this grind, there's no amount of happy thoughts that are going to get me through that. There's just no amount of cognitive porn that's going to get me through this. No amount of contending with Plato and Martin Luther with a tip jar that sits empty that's going to get me out of this. Recognizing this habit is the first step towards escaping the pit of negativity, and she concludes with, remember, it's never too late to regain your joy and start seeing the brighter side of life. Final reflections. The human journey is a complex tapestry of emotions, experiences, and habits. Sometimes joy can quietly slip away from our lives, replaced by routine, fatigue, and pessimism. But recognizing these habits is the first step toward reclaiming that lost joy. As we navigate through life, it's crucial to remember that joy isn't a constant state, but a journey of ups and downs. It's about finding contentment in the small moments, breaking free from monotonous routines, reaching out and fostering connections, and, above all, choosing joy every day. So take a moment to reflect. Are any of these habits creeping into your life? Is your joy slowly fading away unnoticed? Remember, it's never too late to bring back the joy in your life, because ultimately, your happiness is in your hands. And the way I would conclude that is, have I texted you recently? Have I emailed you? Have I made a video that wasn't 3 minutes long? I'm reaching out. I need you. I need you. And Mr. S, I know that you're overwhelmed, but I'm telling you that I'm demonstrating what will help you. If you haven't reached out to somebody today, yeah, you have to subscribe. But subscribe to my Patreon and you can reach out to me. I might be more lonely than you. I might need your help more than you need mine. But what I most certainly am is more resilient than you. So while I teach you to be resilient, you can pay me 30 cents a day. I think that's a pretty fair fucking trade. You spend significantly more on that than coffee, and you aren't learning resilience from those people. Even though you're absolutely putting them through a situation that they need to be resilient to. So today, I don't want you to have a good day. Mr. S, I want you to always have a good day. Magic, I want you to always have a good day. But the rest of you, into perpetuity, today, I want you to have a truly shitty day. I want you to truly get in the muck and the mire and the fucking bullshit of your life and ask yourself, does my behavior bring me joy? And then I want you to sit down and I want you to count not your blessings, but the amount of times that you've blessed somebody in your life. Whom, actually, do you bring joy? I'd like to know. Tell me in the comments.